Boston Celtics roster hold depth. What they have to trade. The Celtics are pick rich by top contender standards with 3 tradable firsts in 6 seconds. Damn. Then they got $4 million to trade. Yeah, unlikely. Unlikely. Power rankings just dropped. Maybe we can scroll through it. Cleveland Cavaliers need a defensive wing. 1 first in 8 seconds. They have a trove of valuable bench players in the final years of their contract, led by Karis LeVert, $16.6 million. They really can't lose him. Ty Jerome, 2.5. Sam Merrill, 2.1. Not a lot of contracts to play around with there. Milwaukee Bucks, perimeter defense, 1 tradable first and 1 second. Damn. 1 first and 1 second? God damn. Brook Lopez is on a $23 million expiring contract. Chris Middleton, $32 million. Bobby Portis, $12.5. Possible. Bucks GM John Horst has been one of the most aggressive executives at the deadline over the past decade. He has been on the phones throughout the season looking for deals. But the Bucks are up against the second apron restrictions. But they're absolutely trying. I mean, so since they're... How would a Jimmy Butler trade even have worked for them? Because they can't, since they're second apron, they can't combine contracts and trades, right? Am I wrong there? So wouldn't a Jimmy trade have to be Dame? Oh, that's the Heat fucking with the Bucks then. That's the Heat putting out those... No, can they do Lopez and Middleton? They can't combine contracts in a trade. They have to get under the second apron first with dumping salary. Okay. I guess that makes sense. Knicks need size and depth. They got 1 tradable first in 8 seconds. Precious is making $6 million. Not a lot of... Mitchell Robinson, $14 million. Not a lot of tradable contracts, though. Or at least like big tradable contracts. And Mitchell Robinson, I mean, what is he, a month away now at this point? The Knicks can't take on more money this season. They're right up against the second apron and hard cap. Their big addition is hopefully the return of Robinson. Yeah, that's probably going to be it. Magic needs shooting and offense. What they have to trade, they have 5 tradable firsts in 12 seconds, $8 million trade exception, and are $21 million below the luxury tax. Oh, they might be booked and busy at the trade deadline. Gary Harris, $7.5 million. Corey Joe, $3.3 million. You can combine contracts, but you have to receive the same amount of players as you send, I believe. Can they? I thought second apron, you just straight up couldn't combine contracts. Pay a minimum guy $50 million on a 1-year deal and create max expiring contract you can use for cheap disgruntled stars. No, these contracts are going to become valuable at some point when you're trying to swing trades with the way the cap restrictions are, and free agency is essentially all but dead. The Magic are loaded with assets and apron space and need an offensive talent infusion, but their front office is known for being conservative. The last time the team made a non-draft day deal to acquire a rotation player was for Markelle Fultz in 2019. What? They did trade for Wendell Carter Jr. at the deadline in 2021, but that was a part of a franchise rebuild. Oh, so they're saying the last time they made a trade to really add somebody was 2019. Jeez. That's actually crazy. Sixers need some front court size. They have 4 tradable firsts in 6 seconds. It's crazy they have that many picks to trade. I mean, I guess you look at their roster right now. It's not like they traded for any of them or traded a ton of picks for any of them. KJ Martin, $8 million in part to use in a potential trade. I think the Sixers will probably be a little aggressive at the trade deadline. Here was the key thing. The Mavericks need a defensive wing. what they have to trade: 2 tradable firsts in 2 seconds. Maxi Kleber's making $11 million. Quentin Grimes, $4 million are players who have a trade market. Possible GM Nico Harrison has shown himself to be aggressive at the deadline, and last year's acquisitions, PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, helped the Mavs run to the finals. Dallas has been one of the most active teams on the phones so far this trade season. That doesn't surprise me. I think the Mavs probably organizationally just have an aggressive approach to these things. And it's just like, hey, make calls. Like, let's see what's out there. Let's kick the tires on some of these things, you know? I'm going to stand on business here and say that I do not think that they're going to do much of anything, if anything at all, at this trade deadline. They're just so injured. I think that plays into it. I think that they're probably going to look at their situation and say, can we afford to trade into too much of our depth with how many injuries that we have dealt with? And also, you're going to run into this weird dilemma where when the trade deadline comes around, I'm going to assume Kyrie's going to be back by that point, but you're still probably going to be without Luka, and you're probably just like, man, let's just wait till Luka gets back. And it is, you look at the trade market, who might be available, teams that are probably going to be selling, and who they have on their roster. It's difficult to figure one out. Now, you always have to remember that you got to look a little bit deeper when it comes to the trades. It's one thing to look at the Nets roster and the Wizards roster and some of these shitty teams, but you have to remember that some teams are going to try to swing bigger trades, and that might include some contracts, some players that have value to contending teams and maybe not rebuilding teams. And maybe you can figure out a way to swoop in and pick up a player that way. Like, think about, obviously it wasn't an in-season trade, but you think about the Drew Holiday trade for the Celtics. Like, could they have imagined themselves getting Drew Holiday before the Dame saga happened? Of course not. That was completely out of the question. But then the Bucks make a trade for Damian Lillard, and now all of a sudden, whoa, Drew's on a rebuilding team. So just think about it. There could be some guys that get rerouted. And those could be players that maybe you didn't initially think were available that are all of a sudden available. I mean, I don't know, Kyle Anderson. Guys like that, I don't know about Kyle Anderson specifically, but yes, guys like that. Where if you're a team making a trade, a rebuilding team making a trade with a contender, and they're sending you back like a rotational wing who's, 29, it's like, we don't really need this guy. Then maybe a team like the Mavericks swoop in. Just out of curiosity, do you think if you focus on NBA in general, like all teams other than just the Mavs, you'd have more subs? Because I agree with most of your takes. Well, that's why we're doing this. Denver Nuggets shooting in depth. They are not permitted to trade any firsts. They have 1 second round pick. How did it reach this juncture? How did it reach this point? Michael Porter Jr. could be available in the right deal, and Zeke Naji has been available for the past year. What a horrible, horrible job they've done. The Nuggets had some talks about moving Porter for the Bulls, Zach LaVine, earlier this season. While those talks are dormant for now, the team's willingness to involve Porter indicates the 2023 champs are mulling a shakeup to a core that has underachieved this season. If they could trade Jamal Murray, that would help out tremendously. That Kyrie 4-year, $220 million extension going to kill our CBA? We'll see. Trading Michael Porter Jr. for Zach LaVine makes no sense to me at all. They can't lose Michael Porter Jr. Star to pair with Steph Curry is their roster hole. What they have to trade, they have 3 tradable firsts, 2 seconds. They have depth on their team, salaries of all sizes, and some expiring contracts. And Gary Payton $9 million, Kevon Looney $7 million, Andrew Wiggins making $26 million. They could make a trade. I think Jimmy, there's still a chance Jimmy could end up there. The Warriors looked at deals for LeBron James, Paul George, and Lauri Markkanen in the past year. Yeah, obviously Lauri Markkanen can't get traded this season because he signed that contract extension when he signed it in the summer. Paul George obviously not going to be available. LeBron, hilarious that they even mentioned that. I mean, looked at deals for LeBron. How far did that get? Are you impressed with the Nuggets Celtics game last night, Sally? I didn't get a chance to watch it. I instead, after the Mavs game, went back and watched the Suns Hornets game just to be like, what the hell happened here? Rockets need shootings. I think the Rockets are going to be uber aggressive at the trade deadline. I absolutely think that they're going to be one of the most aggressive teams. Like if you said, hey, you have to choose one team that 100% is going to make an aggressive trade at the deadline, who's it going to be? I'd say Houston Rockets. Stamp it in. They have 4 tradable firsts in 5 seconds. They have a bunch of valuable young players plus some sizable expiring contracts. Steven Adams, 13 mil. That's nice. Jayshawn Tate, 7 mil. That's nice. Jeff Green, 8 mil. Wendy says unlikely. Houston is playing for the long haul and wants to let this team grow together. The Rockets are in position to make a major swing for a superstar, but there doesn't seem to be one available they're interested in going all in for, at least at the moment. Yeah, maybe not a superstar trade, but I think they're going to do something. Lakers, perimeter defense and size. They have 3 tradable firsts in 2 seconds. Some mid-sized salaries. Gabe Vincent, 11 mil. Rui, 17 mil. Jared Vanderbilt, 12 mil. Is he retired? Rui is one of these guys I mentioned earlier. I don't really know, does Rui excite me that much? Not overly. But one of these guys where the Lakers make a trade with somebody, Rui's involved, and that team decides, I don't really want Rui. I got the Mavs swooping on Batum and Whitmore. Gabe, Rui, and Jared, and a first for Ingram is so obvious. Not sure why they aren't doing it. They really need a center. Perimeter defense and size. The center market is dire. I mean, Valanciunas, is that going to be like what they do? Is Valanciunas? Jokic's only championship game against playing teams. Can't beat a 50-win team in the playoffs. Gets a pass for being the worst defensive center in the league. Mavs scored 70 points in the paint on him. I mean, they played who was in front of them. They were a great team that year. I think they're absolutely deserving of that championship. Would you trade Maxey for Valanciunas? No. Memphis Grizzlies, wing defense. The Grizzlies own all their firsts and are allowed to trade up to 4 of them plus 5 seconds. The Grizzlies sense they might be a player and health, of course, away from making a serious run, and they're acting like it. Yeah, they might make a big move because it sounded like they were going to get Dorian Finney-Smith, and then they are very involved in these Jimmy Butler trade talks, it sounds like. So they're out. They're scoping the market. God, I would love Jimmy on this Grizzlies team. I really would. I think that would be great. I think that checks every box where Jimmy to the Suns checks the desperation team, the shitty contracts team, let's make it happen team, and the Phoenix Suns. He checks those boxes. But I don't look at that team as a contender if they make that move, to be honest with you. Grizzlies, though, if you're getting a locked-in Jimmy Butler come postseason time, that's interesting. Why is he telling them not to trade for him? Because he probably doesn't want to stay there. He probably doesn't want to sign there and live in Memphis, whatever the case may be. Unfortunate. I wonder if something changes between now and the trade deadline, though. Maybe it's hey, the market's not there, Jimmy. The Grizzlies want you. They want to pay you. They'll be good. Minnesota Timberwolves, backup point guard. They can trade 1 first in 3 seconds. Minnesota made its big move already. Yeah, with rookie Rob Dillingham raw and battling injury, the Timberwolves could use a stopgap guard behind Mike Conley, and Mike Conley hasn't looked great. That said, the real question is whether they'd look to retrade the less than perfect fit Randall in a splashy move. That would be it. But if you're going to find a guard, what guard is out there? One, what guard's out there for around the $30 million price range, and what team is going to trade said guard and be like, yeah, we'll take Julius Randle. We're cool with bringing in Julius Randle to our situation here. Difficult to figure that one out. Russello, what's your top 17 worst trades of all time of the last 5 years? Jordan Poole? That's actually kind of interesting. That's actually kind of an interesting trade idea. I'm not going to lie to you. OKC Thunder size and shot creation. 10 tradable firsts in 16 seconds. Good God. Tons of young players. They do have tradable contracts. $8 million trade exception as well. Possible. They have all the capital in the world to do it, even though they've indicated they prefer to avoid midseason changes after last year's deadline deal for Gordon Hayward didn't work out. Okay, that cannot change. That cannot stop you from making trades. They've yet to have their full roster together, which is a reason to push off a deal. Cam Johnson, telling you guys right now. Phoenix Suns stretch big. They have one available first in 3 seconds. How do they have a first available? Yusuf Nurkic, $18 million is available. I'm sure he is. Any big deal would require Bradley Beal $50 million, and he has a no-trade clause. Oh, man. That fucking Bradley Beal contract, huh? The Suns' decision to take both of their starting lineups, take both out of their starting lineup Saturday, or starting lineup Monday, makes their position on them clear and rather plainly sends a message to Beal about his position with the team. What a great trade that was. Yeah. Jimmy Butler to the Suns. Will it happen? That's the question. That is the number one question between now and the trade deadline. Would Jimmy Butler to the Suns? Is it going to happen? And if it does, one, what the hell are the Miami Heat doing? Two, if the Miami Heat figured out a way to reroute Bradley Beal somewhere else for assets, what the hell is that team doing? Those are our questions. I think the Mavs need scoring big who can block shots to beat OKC in Boston. We need a Jaren Jackson Jr., KP, Chet type, but the only guy slightly realistic would be Miles Turner, but he's a Gafford level defender. Yeah, I mean the guys you just described don't grow on trees. I don't think Miles Turner is getting traded. Jimmy would help them a lot, to be fair. No, Jimmy would help the Suns, but I don't think it changes too much for them. No, Fanspo does not have my answer. Beal will go back to the Wizards. Yeah, but why would the Wizards do that?